Good morning, Living Waters. Good afternoon, Living Waters. Good evening, Living Waters. Whenever you are having coffee with us, or some kind of beverage, or just want to hang out, talk about God. It's a good life. All right. We've talked about good news. How about some good news? It's nice to have good news, We talked about it on Sunday. There's so much bad news in the world. It's nice when there's good news. What about good news in time of, what is something that we're really struggling with these days? Division! Division. We turn to a book you may have heard of by now. The book of Romans. Chapter 1. Let's go right to verse 16 and 17. Wow, that's 2 days in a row. I just realized 16 and 17 is the verses. That's kind of cool. Anyway, chapter 1, verse 16 and 17. Paul writes, "For I am not ashamed of the gospel." I'm not ashamed of good news, God's good news. "For it is the power of God for salvation to everyone who has faith, the Jew first and also to the Greek. For in it the righteousness of God is revealed through faith for faith. As it is written, the one who is righteous will live by faith." This is Paul's writing to a community he has not met in person. He's writing to people who might be, or most likely Gentile, but he has ministered to people who there's the Jewish and he writes Greek or Gentile. There's a lot of division there of what the church should look like. Who's in the club, so to speak. Jesus made it pretty clear, but human beings, we can't help it with our walls, right? It's also the central question of Romans is, what is this faith all about? What is this different than, is this just a sect of Judaism? Is it something different? What does this all mean, right? And Paul right away in this first chapter hits us with, is about good news. The power of good news, right? That's what this little 2-verse section is called, right? God gives us good news, and it's able to overcome our divides. It's able to unite us. It's able to elevate us into something greater than we were when we were divided. Therefore, Paul is not ashamed of the gospel. Right? It's not something that's burdensome. It can be divisive, but it is ultimately a builder. It's good news, right? Paul is not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God for salvation to everyone. And as for who is faithful, for faith, who had faith first, but God. Anyway, justification by grace through faith, yea, Lutheranism. But yes, it is God's righteousness that has perfected our faith too. I want to make that's what verse 17 is all about. That's why this is such good news. It's not what we do, but it's what God has done. And we live into what God has done. Maybe some of the differences we have don't seem as big. Now, this is not to say that the gospel won't challenge us. This is not to say that the gospel sometimes won't lead for us to disagree on things. That's why we have this gospel. This is why we come together in worship of God, right? This is why we are united in following this good news and living into what God has done. It never said it'd be easy, but it has that power. Therefore, we should not be ashamed of the gospel. No matter who we're talking to, whether it's new people like Paul's writing here, people we know, whoever, we are not ashamed of this good news. Why would you be ashamed of good news? If you believe it is good, why wouldn't you want to share it, right? Especially in the world today, when everything's so difficult. We need to hear good news. Therefore, we are not ashamed of the gospel, the good news of Jesus Christ, for we believe it does make the world a better place. That's just from 2 verses of Romans. I'm telling you, great book of the Bible. Read it, friends. We're going to do a study on it sometime, maybe this summer. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Any excuse to probably gather this summer, right? But anyway, in the meantime, I'm going to keep picking verses from it. All right, have a good rest of your day. We'll wrap it up tomorrow with one last example of good news.